So I guess we'll get started here and hope that everything is streaming properly. But welcome to my first live stream. Nobody's here, but hopefully eventually somebody will show up. And this will still be posted on my channel, so we can talk about it. You can watch that video, and the information will still be out there. So, yeah. This is my first live stream. I've been wanting to do live streams just because I'm here in Florida and there's not a lot of things to do videos about when I'm here in Florida. And so I also wanted a chance to talk to people like one-on-one and actually start a discussion about some of these topics. And so we'll just see how it goes. And if it's something that people seem to be interested in and I feel like it's worthwhile to spend my time doing this, then I'll continue it. And I also have thought about maybe like doing this on a different channel, like starting a live stream for more discussions, because this is more like talking more in depth about sort of issues instead of doing videos like how-to videos or videos about my lifestyle at Dancing Rabbit Eco Village. So it's a new kind of thing. It's a different kind of thing. I might continue to do the regular videos like I do on my channel, and then just do these as the live stream, just specifically for live streams. And we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But today, I wanted to talk about conspiracy theories. Why do I want to talk about conspiracy theories on a sustainable living channel? Basically, because we need to be able to think critically and arrive at the truth and understand the truth and what the real problems are. Otherwise, we're going to be spending a lot of time on imaginary problems. And I think that a lot of conspiracy theories, pretty much all conspiracy theories, are imaginary problems. And by definition, I think conspiracy theories are false and they're misinformation. And, you know, I want to sort of make a discrepancy between conspiracies and conspiracy theories. So I'll explain that a little bit later, but I want to start off with the story because I started thinking about this and doing this kind of live stream because a couple of years ago, I guess it was not the last one, but the year before at the Florida Permaculture Convergence, I met a guy. And I got into kind of an argument or a debate about flat Earth. And so it was just an interesting discussion. And I had seen the guy earlier in the convergence, and he was did a little informational presentation, like short thing about how he was developing a product to recycle plastic. And I thought, this guy, wow, he's interesting, and he seems to have a really good idea. And then like the next day, I heard him talking to some other people at a table there, and I sat down and was kind of listening in. And he was talking about his belief that the Earth is actually flat, and at first I thought he was just joking. I thought he was being sarcastic, but he was actually serious about this. And so we got into an argument, and I was kind of like trying to debunk and like confront him and sort of refute a bunch of the things that he was talking about, the points that he was bringing up, which were, basically based on misinformation. And so one of the things that he showed me was this picture of two different pictures of the Earth from space. And he said, look at these two different pictures. Why does the Earth look different in both of them? And I just didn't know much about these pictures, but he's like, look at the continent of Africa. Look at this continent of Africa. It looks much bigger in this one picture than it does in the other one. And why would that be? Like, this is sort of his evidence for how people pushing this spherical Earth theory or like idea are pulling one over on us. Like, this is the evidence that, like, they didn't get this right. These two images are completely different. And I just told them, like, I didn't have my phone to like go on the internet and just kind of research what was different about these two photographs. And so I just said, well, I don't know much about those photographs, so I couldn't counter his argument. But then shortly after the convergence, I looked it up, and it was very obvious what the difference was, and it was easy to find this out. And so let me see if I can get this to work. Do this. That's probably fine. But anyways, this is the pictures of the Earth that I was thinking of. Like there's this large continent of Africa, and it looks so much bigger than this over here does. So this is what he was. It was a similar couple of pictures. It might not have been these exact ones, but you can kind of see the difference. Africa, this distance between these two spots here is just like so much bigger, and then land mass that it takes up on this circle is much larger. And so these pictures were taken from space, and at any time, only half of the Earth is illuminated by the sun, because it's only coming from one direction. So half of it's light and half of it's dark. So in order to get these kind of pictures, you have to have the sun right behind you. And so that's the way these pictures were taken. But like when you look into the reason why these two pictures look different, there's a good explanation for it. And basically, it's that this one on the left, let me just get back to my information here. The one on the left was taken, you can see it was taken from the moon, like close to the moon, a spacecraft that was orbiting the moon. You can see kind of like the, well, I don't know if that's actually going to show up, but you can see down here, you can see the moons, like hills on the moon, and then sort of the edge of the moon there, and then the Earth in the background. So that's 382,000 miles away from Earth. Or not miles, kilometers, sorry. 382,500 kilometers from Earth. And the one on the right is taken from 29,400 kilometers from Earth. So that's a huge difference. And you might be like, well, why should they look different? Well, when you're closer to something, it looks a lot different. Your perspective is completely different. And even if it's just a globe, even if it's just a round like sphere, it's going to look different, and the things on its surface are going to look different depending on your perspective, like how far away you are from it. And a lot of people might not realize that. Let me go here, and we'll switch over to a different but we can see here, these are different perspectives on Mount Rushmore. So we've got this one from kind of far away, we've got this one that's closer, and then this one from right underneath it. Like the faces look very different. They're different sized, obviously. Here's the Eiffel Tower. You can see how it looks from far away. From right underneath it, look at how distorted this part of it is. And if you're under it, that's the way that looks. And so now down here, we have an actual example of a globe. So this is a good sort of example of exactly what is happening when you take a picture of the spherical Earth from space. And so this is what I didn't know, was the difference in these two perspectives. So this is from far away. You can see North America here doesn't take up a whole lot of this circle that is the face of the Earth that we can see. But then when you go up here and you're very close to it, it's taking up a huge portion of that globe. So much more, and you can barely even see South America there, whereas in this one, you can see a lot more of South America. So anyways, this is the whole point that I was, this is the thing that I didn't know, and this is the thing that I sort of discovered in doing a little bit more research into, oh, that's not working now. Anyways, getting back to flat Earth. So, um, yeah. So I didn't have this information. There were some other things that this guy was sort of points that this guy was trying to make. He had like a design that he was claiming was, you know, the flat Earth design and how everything worked. I do have like an example of that. That is not right. Okay. Yeah, this is kind of working out the bugs here. Not that one. We're making our ways to this. So here we have a flat Earth design. This is not the one that the guy had that was showing me, but this is sort of one that a lot of flat Earthers probably believe is the real Earth. So it's just like this disc, and then for some reason, the sun is shining down like a spotlight. Um, so it spins around, and even though the Earth or the sun does not make this kind of a illumination on the Earth, this is sort of the design that they have. It makes no sense. Interesting enough, this is actually from Answers in Genesis. So this is sort of creationists trying to debunk flat earthers, which is an interesting concept because creationists believe that the Earth is only 5,000 years old, which is just as unbelievable as the flat Earth. So we have that. Anyways, even the creationists don't support flat Earth. They can debunk it. So let's get back to our fit to screen. Hopefully this can work. There we go. Oh, it worked that time. All right. So getting back to conspiracy theories and getting past this flat Earth thing. So flat Earth, kind of a crazy idea. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So what is a conspiracy theory? Conspiracy theories are very different from conspiracies. We can't talk about conspiracy theories without talking about what conspiracies are. So actual conspiracies are never predicted. They're only discovered after the fact and revealed. So we find out things like the Tuskegee experiment, which was basically the US government doing scientific research by infecting African American communities in the South with syphilis and not telling them. And so this is like something that went on for like 40 years. So this was like a hidden program in the US government to do scientific medicinal research, medical research, and basically just like ruining people's lives. It led to the deaths of a lot of people. Nobody predicted this ahead of time. There was no conspiracy theory saying, hey, we think the US government might be, you know, using people as guinea pigs for scientific experiments in this particular way. Nobody came up with this ahead of time. This was just revealed in the early 70s, and the program was promptly ended because when it got out to the public, you know, it was realized how incredibly cruel and inhumane and illegal this program was, violating basically every right of these people as US citizens. And it went on until 1972. It's really unbelievable. You should look that up if you don't know anything about it. So that's an actual conspiracy. Nobody came up with the idea ahead of time. It was just revealed and when it was found out that it existed. A conspiracy theory is an opinion looking for a conspiracy. So conspiracy theories are made up and never proved and never come to pass. They're fiction. They're beliefs, a lot like religious beliefs. And conspiracy theories, they're just surmised or assumed to be true by those who invented or want to spread them. They've never been proven, though in the minds of conspiracy theorists, they've been proven by false information. Conspiracy theorists don't think that it's false, but but uh, they do think that the information they have is true, but it's actually based on false information. So, why are conspiracy theories a problem? They're a problem because they interfere with our ability to get to the actual truth. They aren't scientific at all, nor are they arrived at using any kind of science. They lead us astray in our problem solving because they direct us off the course of the actual truth, and they lead us into the backwaters of insanity. I mean, so many of these are just crazy ideas. Like, it's hard to imagine people even being able to invent some of these conspiracy theories. And we can't solve problems unless we can accurately ascertain the problem and find a real solution. So if we're sort of off track following these and trying to solve these imaginary fake problems based on misinformation, we're not actually going to be solving the real problems. Um, we can't think scientifically if we're buying into conspiracy theories, which are directed by prejudice, opinion, and usually a desire to vilify an enemy. So there's all kinds of biases behind conspiracy theories, and this is a huge part of the reason why they're invented. Pretty much, this is the only reason why they're invented, and they're spread because of people's desires to vilify an enemy. It supports their own prejudice or their own opinion. So that's why they want to spread it. I'd like us to solve the world's problems, and if we're believing in crazy conspiracy theories and learning to arrive at conclusions based on prejudice, opinion, or a desire to vilify an enemy, we'll never be able to problem solve and address the world's real problems. Conspiracy theories can drive people into violent frenzies, and it can motivate people to hurt or even murder other people or commit acts of terrorism. So there are people following, like, believing in certain conspiracies, and then they're taking action based on these beliefs, which are based on false information. They can endanger public health and interfere with relief efforts. So, post Hurricane Helene, there was a lot of anti-FEMA conspiracies that were interfering with FEMA's efforts, and those are first responders to and search and rescue operations. They can drive people to be skeptical of those who are trying to help them. So FEMA and other relief workers were targets of violence by conspiracy theorists, even though they were just trying to help people. And when Hurricane Irma was predicted to hit Florida in 2018, Rush Limbaugh said that it was just the media conspiring to hype climate change, and he urged people not to evacuate, endangering the lives of people who listened to him. But we don't teach critical thinking, and it's sad that people are dying because of their belief in misinformation coming from someone with an agenda to push. And that's sort of where all these conspiracy theories start, is with the agenda. During COVID, medical workers, nurses, and doctors and public health officials were targets of violence and threats from anti-vax conspiracy theorists. This interfered with efforts of these groups to help people. And it also endangered their lives. I mean, their lives were being threatened. So there's a bunch of sort of points that I want to go over about conspiracies, and knowing about these will help us to debunk and to use critical thinking to avoid buying into a lot of these conspiracy theories. So the first one is, what is the motive and what are the means? Do the means exist? To debunk a conspiracy theory, ask for these. So who are the perpetrators of the conspiracy theory? Who are they blaming for the conspiracy? And what is that person or group's supposed motivation? Then ask, what did they have? Then ask, like, do they have the means to carry out what's being claimed? So does anyone have the means to do what's being claimed? So a lot of conspiracy theories, it's very obvious, like there's a group specifically that is claimed to be perpetrating the conspiracy, like basically the group behind this conspiracy that is is theorized. And then, so like, who is that group? And then think about like, what would be their motivation? And so we ask like, is there a motivation? Does it seem realistic? Then ask like, does this group have the means to carry out what's being claimed? Or like I said, does anyone have the means to carry out what's being claimed? Is it even possible? Or is this just like, because a lot of conspiracy theories are claiming that people are doing things that are like in our world impossible. They're like supernatural. So that automatically should be a red flag when you look at those things and you're like, oh, why would this group be doing this? And this is also something that you can ask somebody who is spreading a conspiracy theory. Just like ask them, who is it? Why would they do this? Like, why do you think they're doing this? So the flat earther that I talked to at the Florida Permaculture Convergence, he said that the motivation for maintaining this spherical round earth, like basically this idea that the earth is round, is the NASA budget. I mean, he was just kind of like thinking about it. He hadn't really even thought what the motivation would be, but he was like, oh, the NASA budget, because that, means that they could explore space. If the earth is round, then that can justify them spending money to send rockets out into space and explore space. Not sure why that would only apply to a round earth, because if there was a flat earth, I would think that any organization that's similar would just want to explore whatever is there. So the NASA budget is $24 billion, which only a part of which goes to space exploration. So $24 billion, which is a lot of money. But when you think about the fact that like NASA has really only existed since 1958, it's only in the US, and this, pretty much around the world, it's accepted that the earth is round. And so that means that in order for NASA to do this, it would have to be responsible for maintaining a conspiracy that involves like 8 billion people, and nobody telling the truth about it, nobody revealing the truth about it. And humans have actually thought that the earth was round, or at least like the first time that it was sort of surmised that it might be round was, I think, like 500 BC or something like that. So it was a long ass time ago. And so like over hundreds, if not thousands of years, this conspiracy would have had to be maintained for the $24 billion NASA budget. So we're talking like over thousands of years, quadrillions of dollars. Who knows how much it would cost to maintain this round earth conspiracy. It's just, when you start thinking about that, it's just like impossible. So this is part of the motivation. Like, what is the motivation? Is it really that NASA is going to be responsible for this and is somehow pulling the strings for 8 billion people? And they're doing it just so they can get $24 billion, only a small portion, or a portion of which is spent on space exploration. And then also this idea of like, if the earth was flat, why would the spherical earth get them more money than the flat earth? It doesn't make any sense. There's no logical explanation. And when you just start thinking of like, what's the motivation? There is no motivation. It just doesn't exist. And then if you think about the means, it's the stuff that I'm talking about, like NASA was only started in 1958. So what happened before then? And do they have the means to control and keep this a secret among 8 billion people or more around the world? And it's only benefiting NASA, which is a small agency in the US government with a relatively small budget compared to other agencies. So, and it was, NASA was created in 1958, which was just after the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, which was the first satellite to orbit the Earth. artificial satellite to orbit the Earth. So basically, this was just a Cold War effort. The U.S. was falling behind Russia. They got the satellites up there first, and then the U.S. was like, "Well, we got to do something about this," so they started NASA. Um, Another example, the means for weather manipulation. So conspiracies like Marjorie Trailer Green will say that cloud seeding can somehow control hurricanes, but this is completely false. Cloud seeding does exist, but really you can't do much more with it than uh, seed cloud cover that already exists. It has to be there and ready to rain, and then you can seed those clouds, and sometimes you can get rain to fall where it otherwise wouldn't. But you need the right conditions. You're not controlling anything, and you're certainly not going to be able to make a hurricane, anything that big, with cloud seeding. And once you created a hurricane, how would you control it with cloud seeding? It's just none of it is feasible. So there's no means. There's a lot of claims about motivation for like controlling the weather. Most of them are ridiculous too. Humans just simply don't have the power to control weather on that scale. We're changing the weather with our activities, with such as with climate change. So we're cutting down forests, we're paving huge parts of the planet, um, and we're changing the climate by filling up our atmosphere with greenhouse gases. And so that's changing the climate, and we're doing that on a large scale over a long time, but we have absolutely no control over it. It's completely unpredictable. We have some idea of what's going to happen, and predictions have come to pass, but it's not something that we can say, hey, we're trying to do this and we're doing this. It's really out of our control. We could stop burning fossil fuel, and that would stop the climate change from happening, but as far as like once it starts happening, we don't have any control over what it does. So as far as motivation, people claim all kinds of motivations, like for this weather, controlling the weather. Like the right wingers will say that the Democrats are controlling the weather and creating hurricanes that target red states. For one, most red states have as much as 40% Democrats. So why would you target so many in your own party and just like destroy a huge area? Also, most red states are in the South, which is where hurricanes happen, because that's the part of the Earth where hurricanes form the most often. Hurricanes rarely hit the northern states or even eventually make it up there, like Hurricane Sandy did, but it's pretty rare. And if these people actually knew how weather worked, they'd know that hurricanes form in the summer in the southern part of the hemisphere, and if they move north, they hit or if they move north from like the Caribbean, they hit red states, which are mostly in the South. And remember, the Confederacy was called the South. That's the conservative part of the country by and large. But then when disasters happen in blue states like California, like with these fires that are happening, the conspiracy theorists are still blaming the Democrats for burning their own states. So this pretty much makes it clear another aspect of sort of a point I want to bring up about conspiracy theories. It makes it clear that the only ones with the motivation are the ones spreading the conspiracy theory, and that motivation is to demonize or vilify their enemy. In these particular cases, the left. So you basically start with the motivation of blaming your enemy or somebody that you want to vilify, and then you create a conspiracy theory around that. And sometimes the motivation might seem possible, such as, like I was saying, such as with some of the conspiracy theories around the California fires. Some are saying it's part of an effort to destroy huge areas and make them available for a land grab. No doubt disaster capitalism exists, and wealthy real estate titans will probably swoop in after most of these natural disasters and snap up land to develop it and will profit from it, make billions. But sometimes the logic doesn't fit the motivation. Like in the California fires, these were already rich people, some of them wealthy celebrities. Wouldn't they be the ones grabbing land would want to serve and help? Wouldn't it be more likely for the rich to want to steal land from poor people? That explanation was much more plausible in relation to Hurricane Katrina, because that did destroy the homes of a lot of very poor people and left them homeless. And then, developers went and took over their land, which was valuable property, and redeveloped it, and people just never made it back to their homes. Basically their homes were stolen from them. But even if the motivation, like in this case, seems logical, the means doesn't exist to control the weather on such a large scale. And it also could be that that's not really, besides the means not existing, that could, the motivation, just because it exists or could be thought of, doesn't mean it's actually making someone do this. My own conspiracy around the California fires is that Trump supporters or other right wingers went around lighting fires so they'd be able to go on a tirade blaming California Democrats for everything possible, because that's pretty much what they've been doing since the fires started. They obviously have the motivation to do that and the means to start fires, but in reality, these fires were only made possible by unique weather conditions, pretty much known what caused them. And I don't think Republicans are smart enough to have predicted them and what the impact of arson would be. So, like, they weren't thinking, oh, if we light these fires when this is happening, it's going to burn down this whole area. Incredibly unlikely that they're smart enough to have thought of that. And the other thing is that a lot of the 40% of Californians that are Republican, they live in a lot of these rich neighborhoods. So why would they be burning their own houses down? So that's just my crazy conspiracy theory that's motivated by my political bias. But obviously, I'm not asking any of you to spread that because I already debunked it. Seems like bullshit. So what is the motivation of conspiracy purveyors? Often, so that's like one other thing that you have to think of is like what I was just talking about. What's their motivation? Why are they inventing this conspiracy theory? And then why is somebody else spreading it? Usually it's anti-government, bashing an opposing political group or other enemy. As in the previous example, the right wing wants to demonize the left, but for 9/11 inside job, the left wanted to demonize the Bush administration and blame them for their invasions of various countries. So 9/11, there's a conspiracy theory that this was an inside job done by the Bush administration, because the resulting wars that were started, there pretty much was like a huge motivation on the part of the Bush administration to have some reason to justify invading other countries. And there was a direct connection made between the conspiracy theory about the Bush administration flying planes into the World Trade Center towers and the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. But still, this conspiracy theory seems a lot less plausible than the actual motivation of Islamic extremists to commit terrorist acts in the US. Like, US does so many horrible things and we get blowback for it quite often. And so it seems much more plausible that this would have been just blowback for our foreign policy. The Bush administration did fabricate weapons of mass destruction as a rationale to invade Iraq, and that's pretty much known to be true. So another point: many conspiracy theorists are uneducated, and instead of educating themselves about something they don't know about, they want to act like they know something by making it up or repeating some conspiracy theory, usually anti-government, because it makes it seem like they know something about the topic. So they're just thinking like, oh my God, people are talking about this thing. I don't know how it works. I don't know how the weather works. So I have these people that I want to demonize, and like, here's a conspiracy theory that explains it and makes it seem like I know something about this topic and I can talk about it. And I like obviously people who know anything about it would just look at them like they're crazy. But to them, it doesn't matter because they don't know anything about like physics. They don't know how weather works. So, and they're not interested in doing the work involved in trying to find that out. So basically, they just, you know, they just make it up. Or they're like, hey, I heard this thing, so I know something about this topic. Um, there's also a desire in spreading conspiracy theory or believing one to have to feel like you have some special knowledge that others don't have, and you're fighting a secret enemy that others don't know is ruining their lives. So you are just like on the secret mission, and you have some special knowledge that other people just don't have because they're not as smart as you or as significant. And so this makes brings importance to people's lives. They can be like, "Oh, I know that the government's doing this thing, and I know it, and those other people don't, and they don't believe it." So, for example, the California wildfires had a very obvious explanation, but wildly impossible conspiracy theories were invented to try to explain them. Of course, with the obvious motivation to demonize certain groups. Because most of these people couldn't grasp the concepts of the weather conditions and that actually led to the fires. So misleading videos have fueled false claims that directed energy weapons, often referred to as DEWs, ignited the flames. The conspiracy theory suggests